Hello, Lou Hamilton of Audible Elegance of Cincinnati, Ohio. What I'd like to talk about right now is an older experience, but very relevant. Many years ago, I was treated to an absolute wonderful demonstration of the Beatles box set albums, which were monaural. And the amazing thing is that they had a very exclusive preamplifier that could operate in both stereo and pure mono. But they also were using a VPI TNT turntable that was fitted with both an arm for stereo performance and an arm with a mono cartridge. And they first did the display with it all being in the stereo mode. And while it sounded pleasant, it wasn't completely impressive, shall we say, not compared to what we would later experience. But then they went over to being strictly monaural. And what was pretty much a passive audience listening to the stereo performance suddenly became an audience who was deeply enthused. We were amazed. There were a couple of people that actually got up and started dancing to it. And it was a real firm reminder that when you're using monaural recordings, and some of them are absolutely astonishing, that the use of a monaural cartridge is ideal. Riga one time has you could get their turntable and get a 78 cartridge, which is not quite the same, but ideal for 78s for another reason. The recent purchase from us of a clear audio table where we fitted it with two arms, and one cartridge was stereo, the other one was monaural, because he had both. And the difference between the performance, again, even though he was using a stereo integrated amplifier, was again astonishing. And I just wanted to point that out, that if you're looking to buy used records and you're willing to make the investment into either an arm or a table that can be fitted with two arms, or a separate table to be fitted with a monaural cartridge, you will be very rewarded. And for those who are classical listeners in particular, I had a situation years ago where a family called me up. He was a professor at the University of Cincinnati College Conservatory of Music, and they said, "We got all these records for you for free." So I went over there, and all of the stereo recordings were gone. All they had left were rows and rows of these monaural recordings. And I took them, and as I started to play them, I could clearly understand why they were chosen by the professor, because the performances were astonishing. And if you're looking at music from a musical perspective and performance, as opposed to also having the stereo effect, it was a worthy trip, because you really got to listen to incredible performances. So keep in mind that if you're going to, into collecting, or have collected, or think about collecting, don't underestimate monaural recordings in terms of musical performance. And the best way of doing that is with a monaural cartridge. You may need to buy a separate table for that. You may have a table capable of two arms. We do have that capability through Clear Audio, and the results were absolutely astonishing. So I thank you very much for listening to that little tinker of information. But if you're listening to monaural cartridge, monaural records with stereo cartridges and a stereo system, I would say you're probably losing about 40% of the musical performance itself. It is quite substantial. So think about that. I can only make that suggestion. You might even go out and buy a used turntable and fit it with a used, monaural cartridge, but it's worth the trip. So thank you very much. Bye-bye.